learning, migration, identity. They shape our ethics, our policy, our family, our inner life. Myth makers, in literature, living room, in parliament, and also on the street and in general life. In an age of rapid globalization, where identities shift and traditions are constantly tested, myth offers a stable and flexible framework for understanding who are we and who we want to become. It connects the person to the collective, the local to the global, the ancient to the contemporary. In a world dominated by technology and instant information, myth provides what machines cannot: ethical depth, emotional resonance, or moral complexity. It forces us to confront timeless dilemmas, duty and desire, justice and power, freedom and responsibility. For Indian English literature, reimagines these myths. It does not merely preserve the past, it actually shapes the future of global literary history. Myth as a cultural myth. See, we have to understand something. Very often we use Western terms without thinking. I'll give you some examples from geography. If I ask you what is Far East, I'm sure you will all tell me, oh, that is Japan and China. For me, as your Indian, I'm a Propagation. It's a wrongness because Japan and China are far east for Europe, for America, not for us. For us, it is India East, like 3 years apart. We use terms like Middle East, Eastern Europe. It's not terminology used by them. They dumped it on us. We are using it. Wrong, because for us as Indians, everything starting from Pakistan is on the west. So it's not near east for us, it's near west. Think of that. There's nothing called Eastern Europe for India. It's all Western Europe. They may talk about Eastern Western Europe. So they understand the word myth in the European concept has entirely different meaning than the word myth in the Indian cultural context. Many people talk about these things without understanding this basic. In Western thought, the word myth often carries a shadow of doubt. A beautiful story about one of your relatives tells me the Indian birth. Don't come out with this uncle and aunt. Don't tell me uncle. Tell me, is it a chacha? Is it a mom? Is it a cow? See, you have such a rich vocabulary, we don't use it. You know? So, the Indian word, the Indian word is mitha. Mitha belongs to entirely different cultural world. It's not myth. It's not just by factual accuracy, but by cultural truth. For us, myth has to be factual accuracy, otherwise it's useless. It works with the reality view, with the Aadhaar card, PAN card, that's secondary. Their narrative shape identity of human beings. Moral reflection, and the way millions imagine concept of duty, justice, and compassion. Thus, when India speaks of mitha, it speaks of continuity. The symbolic, philosophical archive written not in stone, but in collective consciousness. The difference is not merely linguistic, it's civilization. Myth is our collective ecology in Indian English literature. We often expect spectacle, epic battles, divine intervention, cosmic drama, human chariots, curses, moons, celestial weapons, the sky cracking open, the destiny being reached. But R.K. Narayan, who spoke Kannada, was from South India, who used to wear most of the time a dhoti, like I also do, even in the US. What is common between R.K. Narayan and me is, both of us, he knew it, I still something entirely different. He reminds us that myth does not always arrive with a thunder. Myth does not need a package thing. Myth does not need a palace. Myth can sit quietly in a tea shop. Myth can walk through a school corridor. Myth can wait at a railway station in India. Myth can hide inside. It is one of the most remarkable inventions in Indian literature. It's modern, traditional at the same time. It's familiar, but surprising, ordinary, and magic. In my view, the biological patterns shape everyday life without making a ground. They guide the rhythm of the tongue, the choices of the people, the moral balance of its character. The school teacher's career follows the cycle, the karma. The financial guide follows between faith and fear. The street astrologer carries ancient cosmology in his pocket, ready to interpret the stars for anyone who wants. In India, you as a woman, even a casual conversation can become very philosophical. We know. See? If you are on a waiting list, go to the airport, go to the counter, the man sitting there, he won't look at you because he doesn't want a frown. Then when you raise your voice, say, hey, I am on the wait list. Can you do something about it? You know what the answer is there? If German will pretty yes, we can do something. Or say, sorry, they cancel the price, they will discount the price. No, nothing is here. The man will, when you tell him, I'm on waiting list, can you do something? He will smile and say, sir, you're all on waiting list. You ask for directions to a railway station. And instead of a simple answer, you will receive from every Indian spiritual advice. Usually, when you are already late, you are afraid of losing your train, and you are least prepared to listen to philosophy. R.K. Narayan captures this rhythm with tenderness. His genius is subtle. He does not preach or proclaim. He shows how ancient symbols migrate into modern Indian life quietly, naturally, without announcement. He shows how the sacred and karmic person was together in India, holding hands like gold. Take the novel, The Guide, Raju. He told his guide, he's a fraud, but he's a charming rogue. Becomes a holy man almost by accident. His transformation in both karmic and sacred. Narayan never tells us which interpretation is correct. By the end, when Raju asks for rain, you are left to decide. Is he a saint? Is he delusional? Is he exhausted? Narayan trusts the reader. Myth for him is a conversation. Take the English teacher. Greek becomes a doorway to metaphysical reflection. Narayan teaches this with calm simplicity, no drama, no exaggeration, just the quiet truth. Narayan teaches that myth is not only in ethics, it is in every level. Myth is not only in heaven, it's in tea shop. Myth is not only in the scripture, it's in railway station. Myth is not only in the past, it is very much present. His work shows that the mythical and mundane are never far apart. That Indian English literature becomes truly luminous and it results in the five myths of daily life. Now let us look at women rewriting the Indian life. From silence to speech. One of the most powerful developments in Indian English literature is rewriting of epics by Indian women. For centuries, the great stories were told from a male view. Women stood in the background. They were praised, they were idealized, sometimes they were pitied, they were thrashed, and they were made to be silent. You don't understand. India, we believe in slogans. We will talk about husband issue. If we don't practice Indian men, think of it. They will be daily upasas. They will go to the temple, worship the deities. Imagine Ahalya telling you, it took 3,000 years for someone to understand. Now again, thinks it's a joke, not a joke. That's the truth, we shout. These women were never weak. They were simply never given the mind of it. Indian women, compared to Western feminists, they are much more strength, Shakti, but within them. They don't go out of despair. They don't demonstrate. They know they are in Vishnu. But they make their idiot husband think that he is boss of the house. To observe one thing, in such a marriage, if the wife dies before the husband, husband will die within 2 years. So nobody wants it. But if he dies, authoritative, micromanaging husband, who thinks he is the boss, everybody is totally dependent on his wife for everything. But we can't even worry about it. No. He dies, Mariastu Ujjantera Manje Tattva Devata. Where women are honored, the gods rejoice. Modern retreats are asked, have you been following this way? I don't need an answer from you. It's what we call a rhetorical question. This reclamation extends beyond Sanskrit. Mindfully tales bring with sharp untruths. Bhojpuri songs feature women who got lazy husbands and unjust in-laws with wit that will embarrass modern settings. In Indian English, writers amplify these voices. They are not importing Western feminism. They are continuing a conversation village women have carried in India for centuries by grinding spices, raising children, carrying water, rarely being given credit for. Mahashweta Devi gave a voice to the tribal and Dalit women. Her growth in Draupadi remains unforgettable, fierce, defiant, and growth. Together, all these women, queens, villagers, singers, rebels, show us something essential. India's feminist tradition did not arrive from abroad. It was not imported. Because it arrived, it was there. Today, writers are simply picking up a thread again. This feminist reimagining expands the canon, reshapes the ancient stories, and returns the microphone to those who are always speaking but never heard. Now let's move on to the next one. Dalits in the Indian English literature. Representation, resistance, and the rise of Dalit self-oppression. Let us now turn to a crucial dimension of cultural narrative, the place of Dalits in Indian English literature. If myth is cultural memory, and literature becomes the arena where that memory is contested, we claim the region. And nowhere is this more visible than in the evolving representation of Dalit life in literature. For decades, Indian English literature spoke eloquently with the Queen's English, writing themselves into the canon. Indian English literature is witnessing the rise of Dalit self-oppression, non-Dalit. The protagonist spoke, but through the broader works of the Punjabi arts. Later on, to deepen mysteries, the fine balance portrays case violence with great sensitivity. Yet, Dalits remain tragically, suffering, enduring, resisting, but rarely getting a chance to narrate the truth. These works opened eyes and created empathy, but they were representation, not self-representation. The real transformation began when Dalit writers themselves started writing in English. Immediately, Dalit Indian English authors counted was not the new voices, new men. Consider the pattern of conflict to against them, shaping this new the Tamil effect Mama, whose English translation became a globally acclaimed text, writes with sharp ethical clarity. Lord Prakash Valmiki's Jhuthan remains one of the most stirring testimonies of humiliation and resistance in modern Indian literature. Sujata, Gideon writing, Ants Among Elephants, directly in English, narrates her family history with remarkable political courage. Rashika Dutt's coming out as Dalit boldly reclaimed Dalit identity in contemporary history. Nina Kandaswamy, with novels such as The Gypsy Goddess, brings fire, literary craftsmanship, and little imagination to Dalit. These writers do not merely describe the jati, the caste problem. They interrogate, they question, they dismantle, they rewrite, they create new myths from the margins. myths of resistance, Garima, Vignesh, Nyaya. Second, live playing the relations of power. They transform personal struggle into Sanskritic symbolic, cultural limits. They turn silence into speech, the exclusion into a powerful literary voice that continues to reshape Indian history. Dalit myth making in English. It's a new frontier. Dalit writers in English are doing something unprecedented. For the they turn basic struggle into symbolic narrative. They challenge old definitions of heroism and show that resistance itself can be made. Raja Swadesh stands as one of the most celebrated folk heroes and honored kings of the Gusar, today widely known as the Paswan community of Bihar and Gujarat. His sons travel from village to village. His courage is celebrated in festival. His justice is ignored in everyday life. And figures like him enter into history. They do not arrive as decorative to the local culture. They arrive as a challenge. They arrive as a challenge to the hierarchy of the upper class, hierarchy of myths, to the assumption that only Sanskrit-oriented upper caste narrative deserves prestige. They ask the literature, these Dalits, whose heroes have been remembered and who have been erased from the world. English, once a colonial language, becomes a tool of Dalit assertion. It's not assimilation, it's transformation. The future is here. Indian English literature must welcome Dalit ethics, Dalit heroes, Dalit mythology, and Dalit future. We need novel Raja Swadesh. Dalit writing in English is a moral force. It corrects old silences. It expands India's civilization and that. It reminds us that true literary democracy requires every word in the story. Myth is not only what we think. Myth is also what we create. Today, Dalit writers are creating new myths from the margins, myths entering classrooms, conversations, the global knowledge. The next book is a tribal narrative, the ecological wisdom. India's literary landscape is larger than the Sanskrit tradition. It includes tribal cosmologies and indigenous worldviews that carry ecological wisdom. Modern science is only now beginning to history. Through their fiction and poetry, writers were Shekhar and Nirmala Kutul show how communities relate to nature not as a source but as a living presence, a companion, a teacher and a model. Their work reminds us that ecological knowledge is ancient, carried in stories that have traveled across India for centuries. In tribal myths, in forest is a family, river is a divine being, mountain is an ancestor, animal is a relative. The idea that nature exists only for human use is not just wrong, it is spiritually incomprehensible. Today, as climate changes threatens humanity, these myths appear perfect. Modernity gives us technology. Ancient narratives gave us the ecological ethics we need hope. Consider worm baby of the Sundarban, the forest goddess who protects humans and animals alike. She teaches balance, restraint, humility. The Western science cannot fully explain the Sundarban. Myth adds depth, ethics meaning. Tribal narratives remind us that ecological destruction is not only a scientific problem, but a moral, cultural, and ethical problem. If we tell the wrong stories about nature, we will treat nature wrongly. If we tell the right stories, we will still have a chance to survive. Next, cross-cultural dialogue. India and the world's myth makers. Indian mythological writing never developed in isolation. It has always been in conversation with world literature. That's why Indian English literature borrows without any problem from Shakespeare. Actually Shakespeare was a Tamil-speaking Iyer. His name was Seshappa Iyer. he migrated to England, changed his name to Shakespeare. Like Michael Jackson was Mysukla Jackson, he migrated to US, changed his name to Michael Jackson. Think about it. It borrows pageant irony from Greek. Indian English literature borrows magical realism from Garcia Marquez. It borrows narrative experimentation from Toni Morrison. It borrows political allergy from Chinua Achebe and it gives back. It lends its own narrative habit to the world. Cross-cultural dialogue does not require abandoning one's own cultural tradition. It requires self-esteem, confidence, confidence to bring your own culture, your own language to the world. Confidence to bring your own dish to the shared table. Confidence to speak in your own rhythm. Confidence to tell your own story the way you are. The ethical questions in India is, what do we owe our family? What do you owe our community? What do you owe our world? What do we owe our gods, our enemies? These are not just Indian questions, they are universal. The same question in Achebe's Things Fall Apart, in Morrison's Relevant, in any serious literature, anywhere. This is why an Indian epic, retelling, and a West African novel can sit together in a post-colonial film. Neither feels like a guest who would be at home. This cross-cultural dialogue strengthens Indian English literature's position in world literature, fostering mutual enrichment and understanding. The next aspect I'm not talking about here, myth, nation, and post-colonial identity. After independence, Indian writers faced a difficult challenge. How to write in English without inheriting Western framework? How to use the colonizer's language without absorbing the colonizer's worldview? How to tell Indian stories in a language that is not a Bible. Western narrative often moves in a straight line, point A to point B to point C, clear, linear, predictable. That's also the time comes. Reclaiming myths became India's act of intellectual decolonization. It gave writers confidence to reshape English, bend it, make it sound Indian. That's why we have Indian. The Indian English we should be proud of. We know the Indian English is another variety of English, and millions and millions of Indians, they need English. They don't need a version. It's a big mistake that we often in schools now, and we are trying to also have foreign languages. No child in any Indian school needs any foreign languages like German or French or English. When they go to college, they can start learning it. That's all right. But it's all foreign. There's a Sanskrit inside the mindset. The truth is one. The wise people speak it in many ways. Indian writers realize something powerful. English is not owned by Indian language. It's a global treasure. And India is one of its largest contributors. Decolonization happens slowly, sentence by sentence, novel by novel. Writers discovered English to carry rivers. It was never designed for. The Malayalam infected heavens. The Portuguese proverbs translated literally. The Tamil idiom inserted without apology. These were acts of rebellion and cultural ownership. Rushdie's chutneyification of English. Arundhati Roy's Atman's verse. G.V. Dasani's joyful grammar break, all declared one truth. English has many owners, with where this rebellion is coming. The real question was never, can we write in British American? The real question was, why can't we write in our own English? Next important point is globalization, the migration of myths. Today, myths travel globally. Indian writers live across continents, London, New York, Toronto, Sydney, Singapore, Dubai, yet mythology remains their anchor. It becomes a portable homeland, a cultural passport, a memory that needs no reason. But we need a country. one rarely lives one story. Myths do not stand in immigration queue. Rushdie mixes Ramayana with the Bollywood, but sets it in New York. The setting shifts, the myth endures. Yuvakavani carries Draupadi in America, to America, asking all three questions. Who gets to tell the woman's story? Who controls the narrative and memory? As the old saying reminds us, कोर्स पर पानी बदले चार कोर्स पर वाणी. Water changes every month. Speed every form. Indian English is the same. Carrying Mithila and Bhojpuri, London and Toronto to London and Toronto, keeping cultural memory alive and mystic imagination growth. Diasporic writers living abroad, Indians, discover something surprising. Distance sharpens memory. Exile intensifies migration magnifies identity. Myth becomes a cultural anchor in a foreign sea. This is why Indian English literature written abroad often feels more mythic than literature written at home. Distance creates longing, longing creates memory, memory creates myth. Now myth and realism are the rivals for partners. Many people think myth and realism are opposites. They think literature must choose. They think myth belongs to temples and realism belongs to streets. But writers who are the models of realism, they address caste, inequality, environmental destruction, state violence, migration, memory, loss, yet they carry mythic resonance. In Hungary tribe, Ghosh involves Ghosh deity, the forest goddess of the Sundarban. Western science cannot explain the Sundarban fully. Myth adds depth, myth adds ethics, myth adds meaning. In the part of small things, Arundhati Roy writes a tragic Upanishad about caste and forbidden law. She does not choose between realism and myth. She combines them, she blends them, she lets them argue with each other, she lets them poet. History asks, what happened? Myth asks, what does it mean? Societies need both. Literature is where they live, where they argue, where they dream each other. Myth builds realism, depth, realism builds myth credibility, together they create a literature that is both grounded and transcendent. Local gods, global English, Bihar's voice in the world. It is written to Bihar. Not as a geography of stereo, but as a narrative flow. Bihar is not a place you merely visit, it's a place you inhabit, absorb, listen, and remember. It teaches you how you think, how to imagine, how to endure, how to laugh, how to spin a story. See, international conferences often celebrate something in oral epics carried by wandering bards with nothing but a drum and flute. These traditions are not peripheral, they are foundation. They are the roots of India's narratives. See, without them, the branches would dry, the leaves would fall, the trunk would fly. Bhojpuri epics, Maithili songs, Lusat ballads, Madhubani painting, these are not close artists. They are sophisticated narrative systems, repositories of ethics, identity, resistance, humor, and hope in life. When these regional stories enter Indian English literature, they do not immediately enrich, they transform it, they expand its imagination, democratize its voice, and force it to confront its blindness. There is a Maithili proverb which captures this truth, and I hope I am saying it correctly. Gram badlaye, khatha na badlaye. Khatha badlaye, manushya na badlaye. Villages may change, stories do not. Stories may change, human nature does. Another of my key sayings is, Jindagi mein khatha chahi, na ajinagi mein khatha ho jaye. Life needs story. Without them, life will not be easy. These proverbs remind us that narrative is survival, carrying memory. Bihar's contribution to Indian English literature is not just thematic, it's philosophic. It offers a world view shaped by resilience, humor, dignity, the ability to find meaning in ordinary. This worldview travels globally through the association, academic discourse, and digital media. A young creator remake folk stories in new form. Bihar is not backward. Don't believe that. Bihar is the back-end server of Indian storytelling, storing cultural data, maintaining narrative system, taking the system. European English literature, which starts the global editor, passing those drafts and returning them sharper, funnier, and more dramatic. Let me come slowly to the last part of my talk. The digital horizon, artificial intelligence, new media. What's happening? And in our time, this zine moment in human history. Artificial intelligence generates stories. Digital platforms spread them instantly. Streaming services replace techniques with cinematic spectacle. Social media compresses myth in memes. YouTube animates vlogs. Instagram expertises rituals. TikTok reinterprets folklore in 15 seconds. Students ask artificial intelligence to write a Mahabharata. ChatGPT to write a Mahabharata. Methods produce versions of Sita, Draupadi, Karna, Bhishma, some thoughtful, some are very shallow, some are astonishing, some are very disturbing. Lovely. But we must be alert. Systems trained largely on Western data may flatten our secrets. Simplify our index. Erase regional voices, distort cultural memory, yet be careful. The artificial intelligence thinks in a European and American way, not necessarily here the programs are created. See, if you will ask any artificial intelligence platform, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Copilot, so when you put in a question, what is curve? What is the D? Most of them will not give you the right answer. They will not tell you when milk is boiled, the part of the ghee with its positive bacteria mixed with it, it ferments and becomes dairy. It will most probably tell you, if you ask what is the ghee, artificial intelligence will tell you, the ghee, milk slept in the night, morning it became tight, that is the ghee. The future of India is myth in English lies in using these tools carefully. We should trust them. We have to deal with our natural limits. Our young people must become digital poets, myth takers with sense. Custodians of cultural memory and technological. Digital media offers two possibilities. Virtual reality, mythology. Okay? But they can play with our folk art, they can play with our literature, traditions, culture, technology. Because they don't carry a responsibility. They don't have cultural activities. They don't have ethical representation. They don't have respect for tradition. The digital future of myth is not a threat, it's an opportunity to re-enchant the world, to bring ancient wisdom to modern phases, to make myth global of the shadow. Now let's get into a grandmother. Imagine a grandmother in mother body sitting on a charcoal, telling an old familiar living story to her grandchildren. Imagine a young student in Boston, in America, reading an Indian English novel, carrying the same rhythm, same courage, same momentum. Two different worlds, one narrative, one time. This is the power of technology. It connects the charcoal to the top, to the computer, the village to the world, the grandmother to the global village, oral creation to digital transition, the past to the future. Myth as a national conversation. Myth is not really a cultural artifact, myth is a national conversation. In dialogue across centuries, negotiation between memory and aspiration, the bridge between past and future. India is not held together by one language. Understand? India is not held together by one religion or ethnicity. I always tell people, मजहब नहीं सिखाता आपस में बैठ। I also tell young people, तो हिंदू बनेगा, मुसलमान बनेगा, इंसान की औलाद है, इंसान India is multicultural, multi-religious, multi-language. India is held together by so many stories of sacrifice, justice, love, failure, and redemption. These stories travel across states, languages, castes, classes, or rivers. So, we should be proud of it. We should be very proud. India is in a mythical cultural thing, circulating everywhere, nourishing everything, taking the imagination. Indian English literature has become one of the most important places where this kind of thing can happen. We should not forget also our greatest treasure, strength is the multiplicity. India does not have one voice, but thousands of voices, millions of voices, billions of voices. There is no one single definition for anything. That's why he never produced dictionary, because I didn't believe him. He said we can't give for one word only one thing, one definition. If there are 1,000 people, there are 1,000 definitions. How do you start all that in the dictionary? That's why interestingly, most of the dictionaries in Indian languages, they were created by the Europeans, because their tradition is different. Now, Indian English literature reflects this tradition. Classical Sanskrit tradition, regional folk words, Dalit and subaltern narrative, tribal cosmologies, diasporic identity, feminist reinterpretations, ecological philosophy, and digital literature. It's not chaos, it's harmony. It's a core of living intellect. Is it work in the Indian literature embodies these principles and we should nourish them. Continuity of the cultural memory is also important. Civilizations survive because they remember, they thrive, because they reinterpret their culture, their ideas, because they adapt to myth. Myth is the engine of continuity, carrying memory across generations, ethics across centuries, identity across bodies. This is what is important. We should never forget. So, continuity is not repetition. Continuity is reinterpretation, renewal. And Indian English literature can keep it alive, can keep it alive. It all depends on what kind of storytelling we have. The storytelling is always moral, political, culture. We all carry a responsibility in making stories. We should ask ourselves, are the stories we are telling, do they include all the people? Do they challenge injustice? Do they present dignity of the individual? Do they honor complexity? Do they resist simplification? Myth can liberate or oppress, enlighten or manipulate. Everything depends on how we use it. So, let us continue with the culture of music. It's very, very important. And the last aspect, the future of Indian myth and global myth is kind of crossroads. The future of Indian myth and global literature depends on our choice, our courage, our creativity. Will myth become shadow entertainment or retain its ethical depth? Will digital media distort our stories or help us to amplify it? The global market amplifies our narrative or will we insist on something? The future is not.
Don't talk.
The story we have to write. Indian English literature is one of the strongest tools to do it. And we have to see that it functions. So let us return to the river, starting with the flower. Nadi kinare khade hokar pyasa rahe. Standing beside the river, get many thirsty. That is the warning which we take serious. It tells us very often stand next to immense cultural wealth, but we don't treat it. We don't honor it. We don't use it. Today, we have walked along the river. Water, current, its stories. The river is myth, memory, identity, literature. Now, at the end of this journey, you must start drinking from the flow deeply, consciously, and courageously. Another one. We live in a fractured world, polarization, misinformation, ecological crisis, technological acceleration, cultural anxiety. In such a moment, myth becomes an essential charm crush for all of us. Not a Hajmola. Not as fantasy or nostalgia, but as ethical imagination, cultural grounding, collective memory. That's what myth teaches us humility, courage, restraint, responsibility. It teaches us that human beings always face the same question, and every time the answer keeps on changing. So, Indian Universal Picture gives the ancient question new life, new language, new rhythm, new urgency. The future is waiting for us. We should have the courage to face that future. It's important. So, I'm coming to the last one, the final word, roots and storm. Let me end my talk a grandmother's wisdom in Maitreyi. Jagir was a good to aid and we may be inherited. The roots are strong, the tree stands firm in the storm. Our myths are our roots, our literature is the key. Our future depends on how wisely we nurture both. And let me offer one more line. Katha जीव रहे but समाज जीव रहे. Stories remain alive, society remains alive. These sayings remind us that narratives are not arguments, but foundation. They hold memory, meaning, identity. When stories, cultural stories, mythical stories, they thrive, communities thrive. When stories fade and disappear, culture slowly also gets weakened, disappears, and in the end is our story that keeps us standing to stand, to change, to prove time. Thank you very much. I wish each and every one of you wish for yourself. I can be found on Facebook. You can contact me there. I'm also on LinkedIn. And you can take my email address to the organizer, contact me on email also. If any of you want me to come and have an academic interaction at your institution, at your college, university, I'll be very happy to do it. Go and check my details on LinkedIn or send me an email. I'll send you all the details. So I wish you all what you wish for yourself. Thanks for your patience, and I hope whatever I said made some sense and you found it very useful. So let me conclude by saying, sorry, Dhanyavad, Jai Nitya. Now, I have a question. If you are expecting me to say Jai Shri Ram or Jai Shri Krishna, sorry, I'm not going to say. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say in my own style, going by my name, Jai Shri Ganesh. Thank you very much. I'm open for questions. One question, please loud, when we are next what you teach, very low. जैसा गुरु वैसा शिष्य तो दोनों मतलब that your students don't ask questions to another.
So, listen early Does anyone have any question?
You can ask me anything you want. You can ask me today I like Karina Kapoor or Kanna Rao. I'll answer the question.
Thank you, sir.
I come to
Describing
your college, next time I come to India, to meet personally.
Yes, to have such a wonderful personality. Okay, you have a question.
Hello, sir.
Am I audible?
What's the good name? I said,
My name is
BBC.
heard your lecture and I felt very happy. I have a question from the first part when you said that in Indian literature, after the introduction or in a way influx of used English writings in Indian literature has taken the charm of real Indian literariness, reducing the influx of literatures from other languages such as Tamil, Bengali, Malayalam and all these things. My question is, in the age of translation, this argument can sustain for long.
Right understanding. Can you repeat it again?
Yeah, but
What did I tell and what do you think was not okay?
yes, sir. My question was that in your presentation, you remarked that after the huge writings being produced in English, basically, Indian English writing, the real literary Indianness that we call Indian literariness has disappeared because it has stopped almost considering of literature being produced in other Indian languages, for example, Tamil, Malayalam, Bengali, Telugu and all such examples you give. My question is that in the age of translation, it has happened otherwise. Most of the literatures which are originally written in Tamil, Telugu, Bengali and other Indian languages, they are being translated very fast into English, giving the picture as if all Indian literatures are written originally. So how far do you think production in English has reduced the influence of Indian literatures or Indian English writing?
You have totally misunderstood me. See, I'll tell you one thing. I said, people who write in Indian English, the second category of members, they don't know any Indian language properly. They read translation. Now, I will not buy this because if you tell me, just because somebody who doesn't know Indian language, who speaks English, reads a translation of a Malayalam novel or a Hindi novel, he understands the literature language. That's not correct because the academic people in India still follow the translation model of the West, which is word by word. Can I give a talk today for the Jain University at 6 o'clock in the evening on the response to Ramayana in German. See, what you have to do to understand is this. The typical Indian tradition of translating was not translation, it was transcreation. That's something entirely different. Look at Ramayana. Ramayana was rewritten in Indian languages, mostly by poets in those languages. They recreated Ramayana according to their values and their culture. That is richness. You can't translate everything word by word and claim that it's a great translation. I don't believe in that kind of translation. I'll give you one example. In North India, you have got very lovely name for Krishna, Radha Krishna. You call him Makhan Chor. ठीक है?
Yes.
अगर कोई हिंदी की किताब है, उसमें माखन चोर की बात होगी, अब कोई उसको अंग्रेजी में ट्रांसलेट कर दिया, तो अंग्रेजी में क्या लिखेगा? मर्डर thief. What do you think? The people who know English understand and are murder thief. See, the whole cultural content is lost. See, a language. You want to understand the literature of the language, you have to read the origin. Any translation is what I said, second precaution copy. It's diluted. It doesn't give you the entire essence value of the story. That is why even Rabindranath Tagore, he did not translate his Gitanjali into English. He transcreated the infected. The English Gitanjali is a new creation. It is not identical to the Gitanjali before. A lot of examples of that. Every Ramayana is recreated. और नास्तिक में जो रामायण है उसमें जब रावण जब हरण करता है सीता को तो उसको वो ऐसे बता के ले जाता है Tamil Ramayana does not allow it. Tamil culture does not allow you to culture forest tree without your permission. After you can't get your own tree, your own right. So what does Tamil do? It translates it into Tamil. So Ravan picks the land of which Sita is standing. He doesn't touch Sita. He takes the land along with Sita and goes. जैसे हनुमान जी संजीव पर्वत है तो around this what you are telling is a typical uncriticized English interpretation. I'll give one more example. आज आप देखिए पूरे इंग्लिश डिपार्टमेंट इंडिया में why are they doing PhD dissertation about Indian literature? It's none of their business. They should be doing only English literature. I know a teacher. I met one girl. She's doing a PhD dissertation in English and Foreign Languages Institute. When I worked in the first English and Foreign Languages, I'm not F2. I'm C. F2 is something else. You know what is F2 for me? As a person from C. F2 is for me what is today's BJP for Ramakrishna Advani. ठीक है? एक लड़की वहाँ प्रेजेंट कर रही। टॉपिक क्या है? The folk songs of Uttarakhand. लड़की हिंदी नहीं आती, वो केरला से। मैं सोचा, how do you research on it? Sir, I did the English translation of this song. ठीक है? Then, ऐसा ठीक है, तो आपका सुपरवाइजर जो है, उसको हिंदी मालूम है? नहीं, वो तो इंग्लिश से बोलते हैं। उनको इंग्लिश मालूम है। उनकी मातृभाषा तो कन्नड़ है। What kind of research is that? Malayalam department, English department, Telugu department, Punjabi department. उनको रिसर्च करना नहीं आता है. They don't know how to do research in European ways. That's wrong. Even research, our traditional research, the English things, the European, I write a book on French and German or Gola. You will come and write a book on that saying whatever I wrote is wrong. You will bring something. That's a European. Hypothesis, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, again that. Each one trying to put other words. India is not a culture like that. The literary work, the day you want. Any work. That's why today in India, for Bhagavad Gita, you will get commentary. Radhakrishna, Chinmayananda, he called it Bhashya. Bhashya was that commentary. Some German asked me, what is the difference between research in India and here? I said it's very simple. In India, right from our birth, you said that the serves people need serves. Not the skill. But it should be out of question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for such a wonderful lecture. Indeed, we feel blessed to have you as an eminent speaker of the plenary session. On behalf of the organizing committee of this international seminar on myth, society and cultural narratives in Indian English literature, I like to propose a vote of thanks. I thank you for such a wonderful lecture, sir. At the CIFL, we used to be the walking encyclopedia, and I am privileged to be a student of yours. I continue to learn from your lectures. Thank you, sir. Thank you on behalf of all the participants, all the delegates, and on behalf of me also, I like to thank you again. Thank you very much, sir.
Pues gracias, Lupito,